Today, through this webinar, we will deep dive into AWS Cognito and how we can use it as a standalone identity provider. We will also look into real-world design patterns and how we can implement this authentication and authorization for the application, and how to integrate with social media providers such as Google and Facebook, and existing corporate directories such as Microsoft Active Directory or AWS Identity Server. We will also cover how to use Amazon Cognito's IDpoor and user pool with conjunction with the API Gateway Lambda and AWS IAM. To make this real, we will also run through a demo of a web app which does authentication and authorization via the Cognito, and which also has a fine set of granular permissions to access these AWS resources. The source code will be shared and the demo will be shared at the end of the session, so you can also try out and see the demo. Okay. Before we move on, let me walk you through our company introduction. We as Mitra Innovation predominantly work with enterprises and entrepreneurs with product incubation and digital transformation. We also specialize in AWS technologies and cloud-to-cloud integration. And we are also a certified consulting partner for AWS. So let's start off with the webinar. So before we start off, we need to understand why identity is important. And identity is an important aspect and is the entry point for most of the web application and enterprise applications. And is important for a number of reasons. The first one is identity is critical for the security and the access of your application. This controls who can access your app and what they can do with it. Identity is also important to your customer and what they come to own in your application. Typically in an application, the customer would purchase something or upload the image or some content, or whether they'll engage in some kind of activity and have some progress. So at the end of the day, they end up owning something in your application, and identity is a critical way where you can attach them with what they own. And also, identity is critical for your user experience. In a simple manner, you can simply greet the user by his name, or in a more sophisticated way, you can customize the whole experience itself so it matches the role of the user. Finally, identity is important for managing customer relationship. So you want to be able to maintain a steady and a constant relationship and track the user's progress. And identity is a critical way to accomplish this. So if it is important, how do we get it right? So in order to make it right, we need to highlight 3 things that should be in place to make this right. First of all, we should put security first. Yet again, we are talking about this. These are the front, say, the entryway to our application. We need to make sure we protect this and all the sensitive data behind it. We have to put security first and make sure the platform itself is secure. Another really important thing is to minimize user friction. We already mentioned this is the front door or entry path to application. And if the user itself gets stuck in the front door itself, then it's not a good sign. For example, if the sign-in and sign-up flow is very long and cumbersome, users might opt in to use the competitor's product or not even sign up with our app at all. So we should always target to minimize the user friction. And if we can get these users credential via some social providers, it's always a good to incorporate these workflows in our authentication workflows. Finally, we should always design for success. If you're going from 100 customers to 100,000 customers within a week, you should be able to scale to that amount. You don't want this authentication and authorization to be the bottleneck when you are scaling. So let's see what are the things which are offered by AWS Cognito out of the box to address the issues we have discussed earlier. First and foremost, it offers a managed user directory. In Cognito, we call them as user pools. It creates your directory where you can sign up users, create profiles, and verify password and change password, and manage the entire life cycle of the user. In a simple sense, it's a full-fledged user directory. In addition to this, Cognito also provides the ability to keep your existing IDs. For example, so instead of creating a new profile, you can use your existing profile itself. For example, if you are having like a social identity, Google, or an enterprise identity, you can simply log in with these credentials. And in corporate environments, it's more of a requirement to allow your employees to use their existing enterprise identities to sign in and sign up and to provide single sign-on capabilities. And companies do not like to duplicate these profiles and move users here and there. This federation helps us to manage the users centrally. Often this could be a solution which is centered around Microsoft Active Directory or some kind of open source identity providers. Cognito also offers two main ways to provide the user interface for us. One is a fully hosted solution. This has all the workflows fully hosted. For example, the sign up, registration, sign in, forgot password, everything is hosted. And this is also heavily customizable. You can add your own logo, add your custom error messages. Everything is customizable. But if you want full control over your application, what you can do is you can write your own application itself and use the AWS Amplify library in order to communicate with Cognito. And another important feature of Cognito is it federates access and provides access to your AWS resources. And this also supports standard stacks such as OAuth2 and OpenID. This helps you to integrate with other services easily. Okay, now let's jump back into identity management scenarios you'll come across in the industry. The normal one you would come across is business to consumer. This is normally an e-commerce website or a social media website such as Google or Twitter. And another scenario would be business to employee. This is a typical scenario where the employees are given access to your company resources. There can be many other scenarios as well, such as an IoT scenario or business to business kind of connectivity. So this slide sums up what are the possible identity management scenarios you will come across when you are trying to implement these workflows. Now, let's dive into Cognito user polls and look into how we can implement user sign-in and sign-up flows in a serverless manner. As you can see from the slides, developing an authentication infrastructure is difficult because, first of all, you need to have a reliable user directory, and you need a secure way to save the password and protect the privacy, and you need to be able to scale up, scale down, and implement token-based authentication. So all these are a bit hard when we go to a production level scale. Since managing identities is an integral part of most of the application, in order to start up, we need to create the sign-in and sign-up flows. And we have always seen in the news that most of the popular websites are always getting hacked and all the users' credentials are getting compromised. So let's see how we can secure these credentials. For example, how we can handle the user data and password and protect the privacy of the user. In traditional way, what we use is we simply spin up a database and we save the username and password of the user. So how are we going to save the password of the user? Definitely not in a plain text form, because it's anti-pattern. If your database gets hacked, all your username, password will be exposed to the outer world. A more better way is known as hashing. Hashing, what it does is it takes your password and applies a hash function, and it gives you an encoded string. So this is known as hashing. But this is also not a secure way, because with the introduction of rainbow pages and directory-based attacks, this is also not secure. So, for example, if you have a hash password of a well-known popular password, let's say 123456, you can simply go to these rainbow pages and try out these hash passwords, and it will give you the original password itself. So a more secure way is shown in the second diagram here, which is salting the password. What we do here is we add a random or arbitrary string to the password. As you can see, we have added the arbitrary string to the password, which is hello, and we finally hash this. This will add this will extend the security of our solution, but this is also not a foolproof solution. So we need to come up with something more secure. So we So what if we don't need to store the password at all in the backend? And what if we don't want to like exchange this password here and there in authenticating? So, and yes, there's a protocol exists for this, and this is known as Secure Remote Password Protocol. Due to the time limitation of the webinar, we'll be not looking into how this protocol works and so on and so forth. But at the end of the session, we'll give you some URLs where you can refer regarding this protocol. And AWS Cognito uses this protocol to add an extra layer of security to this authentication and authorization flow. So what we have to understand here is this SRP protocol is a verify-based protocol, and the password never travels over the wire. Okay, now we are seeing how Cognito is keeping the user credentials. Let's move into a normal sign-in and sign-up flow. So in the sign-in and sign-up flow, either the admin can create the users or you can enable the self sign-up process. In the self sign-up process, it happens in a normal way where you can provide a username and password. And it doesn't always need to be a username and password username. For example, you can even give the email or phone number as a unique identifier. And after that, you can also optionally add some additional verification steps such as email verification or SMS verification. And after these verifications has been done, a user will be successfully created in the Cognito end. After the registration is completed, you can authenticate the user via the username and password. When authenticating, in the yellow dotted lines you can see, we can add custom challenges for this, which is also optional. You can either add a CAPTCHA or custom two-factor authentication. And after you successfully challenge these responses and give the correct answer, you'll be provided with some kind of token, and we call this as a JWT tokens. So what are these tokens? Let's look into it. So JWT tokens are known as JSON Web Tokens, and this is an open standard and a compact and self-contained way where you can transmit information between parties. And this information can be also verified and trusted because this is digitally signed. And these JSON tokens can be signed using an HMAC algorithm or a public-private key pair. So as you can see from the image, the JSON Web Token has three parts: header, payload, and the signature. The output is a 3 base 64 URLs separated by dots, and that can be easily passed in the HTTP context. And this is a more compact way compared to the XML-based protocols such as SAML-based protocols. Okay. So by obtaining these tokens, you'll be getting actually 3 tokens: access token, ID token, and a refresh token. You can constantly communicate with these with your application to authenticate and authorize. So now let's move into the next step on how we can import existing users. For example, if you already have a directory-based solution, and if you want to move all your users for the AWS Cognito, Cognito provides 2 kind of ways to do this. Either you can go for a batch import or one at a time migration. In batch upload, simply what happens is we upload a CSV file with the users, and when the user tries to logs in, he has to give a new password. And one of the important restrictions here is within the row, you should either have an email address or phone number associated with this user. And this one-at-a-time migration step, what happens is when a person simply logins, we initially go and check in the Cognito user pool whether that user exists. If not, we will go to the prior IDP and see whether this user exists and authenticate. And what we do is we get the username and credentials, and we silently create a user in our user pool. So, and this is one of the easiest way to do a one-at-a-time migration rather than going for a huge batch import. So we have gone through what is a user pool and how we can create sign-in and sign-up flows, and how we can import users. So to explain this concept more, we'll jump back to a demo and see how we can create this user pool in the AWS console itself. So for that, I invite Ashwant Pereira to go start demo the solution. Over to you, Ashwant Pereira.
Thank you, Nirojan. Hi, I'm Ashwant Pereira, working as software engineer in Mitra Innovation, currently working on R&D division. So I'll be walking you through the demo. So in AWS Cognito, we have two main components, user pool and federated identities. In this session, I'll be walking you through on user pool creation and also sign and sign up process. So as you can see, this is the page to create a user pool. You have to give your user pool name in the attribute section. Let's say you have an application that needs email or phone number as your username. You can tick this button and move forward. So other than that, if you want to track or persist user's birth date, we have all these birth date attribute, and all these attributes are there for you to use on your user pools users. And other than that, if you want to keep track on other attributes that will be useful for your users, you can add custom attributes. So moving forward, next step, here is the policies page. So you can enforce your users to use a good password with good length, special characters, uppercase letters likewise, because nowadays in the industry, it's a huge huge role in industry or security. The password plays a huge role. So you can enforce your users to create a good password. And also, if you have a mobile application or a web application, if you have an idea to create a mobile application or a web application that only sends users invite links, you have that option here, and also you have an option that provided by the AWS Cognito to set expiration date for that. And also, as the normal flow, you can allow your users to sign themselves up. So moving on to multi-factor authentication. So multi-factor authentication for sure will increase your security of your end users. So it's just one click away on AWS Cognito. Otherwise, if you are doing it from the scratch as a developer, it will take more time for you to configure SMS gateways, email gateways. It will be a huge work from your side, but you just have to create an SMS role to send SMS to your devices. That's it on AWS Cognito, and it's very straightforward like that. So moving on to message customization. So email verification and phone number verification messages can be customized from here. In the tag section, you can search in your AWS environment for your user pool if you add a tag to your user pool. So these devices option that given by AWS Cognito is very useful when it comes to advanced security. We can track our users' devices and also identify fake logins, and fraud detection can be done. Likewise, advanced security can be enabled. Niranjan will talk to you about that later. So with this, we can do those kind of stuff to add more security to our user pool. So other than this, more valuable stuff will be there on trigger. So triggers are basically Lambda functions. You can they will trigger on these events that we are in frame. When the user pre-sign up, pre-authenticate, or any of these events, we can have a pre-configured Lambda function to be triggered on that events. So this is the flow that we had to create a user pool. So I'm moving forward with a web demo that we have created for the webinar. So this is the webinar demo that we have created for you. So we have used name, email, phone number as our attributes. So I'm moving ahead with create your account. So it will send a confirmation code to your email address. Just refresh my. So you got a verification code. I'm going to copy and paste it here, and we can confirm. Now you can log into your site. Now, as you logged in, you can see all the users currently logged in, users details logged in here by us. So the very useful thing for your developers is the tokens that we are getting from AWS Cognito site. We are getting 3 tokens: access token, ID token, and the refresh token. The ID token will contain all the details of the currently logged in user, so I'm going to decrypt it and show it to you. So in the payload, you can see all the users' details are here. So these details are from the AWS Cognito site and got from users on users registration phase. Okay, that's up on the user sign up, sign in, and user group creation. Over to you, Nirojan, to continue on the webinar.
Thank you, Ayushmanta. Let's move on to the presentation. Okay, hope you got a good understanding on how to create a user pool and how you can integrate with Cognito. Now let's look into the advanced features which are provided by Cognito. And these advanced security features are currently in beta state right now and was released recently. And these features should be specifically enabled because this will incur some additional charge. And you might have seen this activity in some of the popular websites. For example, if you log in with a new mobile device or from a completely new location, you'll be getting an alert meter saying that there's a suspicious login or sign up activity. And sometimes you might be prompted to use a multi-factor authentication. In the same manner, when AWS Cognito also detects anomalies, and what it does is it will give you a risk score for each of these activities. And based on this risk score, what you can do is you can define your own steps. Either you can prompt to extra verification by multi-factor authentication, or you can simply block the request itself. In addition to that, users can now verify themselves using the time-based one-time passcode. For example, we can use the Google Authenticator. And further on, there might be scenarios where it is completely normal for people to use the same password for several websites. And there might be scenarios where one of these database like websites get hacked and all your data like passwords gets compromised. And AWS Cognito detects users when they enter the credentials that have been compromised elsewhere. It will prompt them to change their password. Apart from all these features, it also provides a report. So this would be very valuable for your security and compliance reasons. And these are the advanced security features provided by AWS Cognito. Now let's look into another major offering by Cognito, which is the IDpoor. As we have seen before, this helps us to federate access to our AWS resources. So as an identity provider here, we can use a social sign-in providers such as login with Amazon, Google, or Facebook, or we can simply use the user pool itself, AWS Cognito user pool, which we created earlier, or we can go for an enterprise identity providers. Now imagine that we are going to create a mobile application. And imagine this is a game which is going to consume several set of AWS resources. For example, it's going to use the Amazon S3 for storing user-related data, and it's going to use the DynamoDB, which is a NoSQL database offering by AWS, to store the user session. So when we write such an app, what we have to do is, in order to consume these resources, we need to sign each and every request with the AWS access key. And the easiest way we can think of doing this is by simply embedding the long-term credentials that we get from AWS into the mobile app and simply distribute it. But it is not a recommended approach at all. If someone else gets hold of this key, then they might misuse your resources. And AWS does not even recommend you to store this key in an encrypted format also. So the best practice is to request temporary AWS credentials when you need it dynamically at the point. So, and this is known as a SAML-based identity federation or a web identity federation. Okay. And let's say your application has two kinds of users, premium and free users. So how can we limit these permissions to each of these users? For example, the premium user might have special access to additional AWS resources. To accomplish this, what we can do is we can create separate IAM roles in the IAM console itself, and we can assign the related policies and permissions to these roles. And when we are creating a user in the Cognito group, Cognito, what we can do is we can create another group and assign this user to this group. And after that, a simple step needs to be done. We can simply assign the role that we have created into this group. So simply we can create a premium group and a free user group and set these users accordingly. Using this method also helps you to secure your AWS account itself, because you don't have to embed and distribute the long-term security credentials and the short-term security credentials which are provided by the AWS STS, which is also known as a secure token service, which is the one who is giving these JSON Web Tokens for you, will be like totally like circulated, so it won't be fixed. It is more of a short-term credentials. And say if you want to provide a guest user experience, so you don't want to authenticate any user, but you want to show a guest view for the user, and this view also can be incorporated into the IDpoor itself by using an unauthenticated user flow. We have seen all the features. Now you might wonder how this is priced, and will this be very costly? So let me walk you through how the costing is done in AWS side. So if you are using like most of the AWS resources, we don't have to pay upfront commitment or minimum fees for that. And if we are using the user pool for managed users and to manage the entire life cycle of the users, we'll be charged for the monthly active users count. So let me explain how this monthly active users count is calculated. For example, for a given calendar month, if there is any kind of activity like authentication, sign up, or password reset, or refresh token has been issued, these kind of activities will be calculated as an active usage, and these users will be added to the monthly active users count. So, and the important thing to note here is the subsequent sessions of these users will not be charged, and we will not be charged for the inactive users also. So let's say a user signs up in the previous months and he is not active in the current month, we won't be charged for that user. And AWS provides a free tier for this AWS Cognito user pool. So the first initial 50,000 active users we don't need to have to pay for the first 50,000 users. And for the next 50,000 users, per user basis, we can pay as the number grows. And federated identities and secure access control to AWS resources are always free with Cognito. And if you are using SMS service for either to reset the password or to confirm a number or anything, a separate charge would be added, and we should prefer the AWS Simple Notification Service SMS gateway pricing for each and every country-related pricing. Okay, now let's look into how we can do a simple identity federation with AWS Cognito, and I invite Ashmanta Pereira to continue with the demo.
Thank you, Niranjan. So I'll be talking about how to federate access to your AWS resources to your AWS Cognito user pool users. So here I'll be talking about federated identities. Identity pool is the one that holds the main part in federated identities. Creating federated identity pool it's very straightforward. You just have to give a name. So I have created one for you beforehand. So we have created one cross account tab. And in the browser, you can get the ID of it. With this ID, we can create AWS user role. So creating a user role, you must select the type web identity. In there, you get all the separate IDPs. So I'm going to select Amazon Cognito and give identity pool ID. So next, I'm going to attach policy. Let's say I'm giving Amazon Athena full access to my user pool users, and just a name to the role, and going to create role. So the role is now there. So the next up is create a group that have all the users. So I'm going to create group. So I'll name it as Aish. Yes. And you can select one. For now, I'll select the previously created role must appear here. So for now, I'll let predict the authenticated app. So you can create group, and now the group is here. So this happens like this. The users of your user pool are attached to this group, and this group has we have attached to this group the role that has access to Amazon Athena. So that's how in AWS Cognito we federate access to AWS resources to your user pool users. So that's it for the demo, and also that's the end of the webinar. So it's time for Q&A.
Okay, let's move into the Q&A session. And there are some questions asked by some of the viewers. So the first question is how we can monitor the users' activity in AWS when they are getting federated, AWS resources are getting federated. So to answer this, AWS has a product called AWS CloudTrail, which is used for auditing purpose and which will also log all the API related activities to the S3, which is the storage medium. So we can simply enable this AWS CloudTrail, and whenever a new resource is created by AWS role, you can simply go to the log and view who is the person who has created this resource, and you can even have the user access ID, so you can remap to the original user pool and see who is the person who created this resource or deleted this resource. So CloudTrail and this AWS Cognito has a deep integration between them. So this would be the way we can monitor that, and hope this answered your question. And there's another question where it states it's asking to elaborate more on the hosted UI of Cognito. So let me walk you through the hosted UI. So let's click a user pool and see. Okay. So in here, in domain name, if we are going to use the hosted feature of AWS Cognito, initially we need to create a domain name itself. So we can create a domain name here. And after that, what we can do is we can go for the UI customization. In UI customization, what happens is you can you can see all the customizable attributes. You can customize your input fields and error messages, and even the banner, or even here the logo itself. After that, what we do is we take the domain name we have created, and when a person tries to log in, we'll redirect him to this URL that we have created. And we will have a refer back link, a redirect link to our original website. So when the person makes the login request and gets authenticated, what Cognito does is it will refer back or redirect us back to our domain, so we can have the tokens and continuously do the rest of the authentication and authorization scenarios. Hope that answered your question, and those are the questions that have been asked. So hope you got a good understanding about AWS Cognito and how you can use it as a serverless identity provider to enhance your authentication and authorization workflows. Thank you.